Okay, we are on. Hi, this is Michael Waitze, and welcome back to the Asia InsurTech podcast. This is the only podcast in Asia focused on insurance that gives entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and investors a platform to discuss how technology is reshaping the insurance industry. We are happy to have Vivek Mannige, the founder and CEO of AccelTree's software, on the show today. Vivek, thank you so much for doing this. I trust you are doing well.
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Michael. It's also good to be on the show.
Thank you so much. Before we jump into the main part of the conversation, we like to ask our guests what they think the biggest trend in insurance and InsurTech is. We can say in India, but frankly, it's globally. What do you think?
Technology has been used in the insurance industry for many decades. Okay, so technology and insurance have gone hand in hand. However, it's been used mainly in the back end to manage issuance and servicing of policies. Around 2010, tech solutions emerged that digitized many manual processes of insurance distribution and servicing. That's around the time the word InsurTech was coined,
Right.
about 2010.
Okay, go ahead.
Today, these processes have matured and are used widely to contribute to a carrier's efficiency and provide indirect benefit to customers. However, today, most people view insurance with a level of skepticism and few purchase it, probably because of a feeling of safety in the present that keeps them from thinking of possible adverse events in the future. I think that InsurTech 2.0 is what's coming shortly and will focus on the customer by making insurance distribution more tailored to individuals and also transparent. At AccelTree, we call this care of one digital strategy.
You've brought up too many things now for me to go backwards, but what do you think changed technologically that made this type of insurance for one, or personalization, which is what I'll call it, or hyper-personalization, possible, right? And let's go back to 2010, because you bring up a good point. You know, back then there were tons of technology already, and insurance companies looked at what they had and said, this process is manual, let's digitalize that and make ourselves more efficient. This back-end process that nobody really sees but we know exists is also manual. Let's digitize that. What changed between 2010 and today? I mean, I know there's a lot where they said, wait a second, now we can digitalize and personalize insurance almost down to one.
Well, interestingly, in 2010, Samsung introduced a 7-inch tablet. Okay, that changed the way people looked at mobile devices as a means to work as computers. Till then, mobile phones were looked at also as pure devices for communication. And when the tablet came, businesses saw the tablet as a small computer. And new products were introduced, new software products were introduced on mobile phones. That was the beginning of the digitization that went out of the office onto the field.
Interesting. So there was this low-cost idea of combining Android, right? Because the iPhone, and I think actually the iPad was also introduced in 2010. But this idea that Android on a 7-inch tablet was now way more affordable. You could fork Androids. You could do a whole bunch of other things with it that you may not have been able to do initially with iOS. Or back then it may even still have been called iPhone OS. So you're saying it was that thing that said, wait a second, I can now take this powerful computer with me remotely or anywhere, and then I can serve other things on it, and insurance companies figured this out.
Right. So essentially, they could then take it and face the customer and actually sell to the customer while facing the customer.
Okay.
The insurance selling, well, or most of insurance sale in those days, and probably even now, is done by individuals, agents, producers who actually face the customer and close a sale.
Yep.
Accepted digitization and the internet has allowed customers to buy insurance, but it's still, I don't know the exact number, but it's probably not more than 10% of insurance premiums.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I just bought health insurance myself, and I did it through an agent who had a tablet that wasn't an iOS tablet. It was an Android tablet. And we did it all face to face, but it was all done digitally on that tablet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what changed InsurTech, if you ask me. And that's the exciting part of it. And that's changing continuously.
Yeah. So back in 2010, what was AccelTree doing? Like, when did AccelTree get founded, by the way?
AccelTree was founded in 2002. That's 20 years back.
Oh my God. Good for you.
And in 2010, we introduced the first tablet-based complete end-to-end solution for sale of life insurance.
Okay. But here's the interesting part for me. Between 2002 and 2010, you're developing software, you're doing stuff, you're in that business, right? What happened? I'm really curious about these internal meetings when the tablet comes out, whether it's an iPad or a Samsung tablet, and you looked at it and you said, what can we do with this? Was it driven by internal innovation, or was it driven in partnership with external life insurers who said, how can we use that mobile computer that's almost as powerful as a laptop, but much more mobile? Like, how did that work? What was that time like?
Okay, let me go back a bit to 2002.
Please.
Okay. AccelTree was formed with the objective of accelerating growth of companies. That was the word AccelTree.
Got it.
We had experience in the space of banking and lending. So we said, let's build a platform to help us build mobile solutions, to deliver mobile solutions. We built the platform, and it took us some years, 2002 to 2005. And when we brought it out and we showed it to venture capitalists, they said, oops, sorry, we cannot invest because we've lost a lot of money in tools. It was soon after the dot-com bust.
Right.
They were still smarting from it.
Yeah.
So they said, sorry, we cannot, nobody's going to invest in you for this. You've got to churn out the money yourself. So then we decided to use that platform to build our own mobile solutions. We built them for the financial services industry. And we had a loan origination application on the mobile phone. Okay. So this was all the way between 2002 and 2009.
Yeah, but back then, between 2002 and 2009, the biggest thing that happened was the iPhone was released in 2007, and then Android kind of copied it and mirrored it a little bit after that. But between 2002 and 2007, if you were building on a mobile platform, you were likely building on Symbian or Nokia, I'm guessing.
We were building on Nokia 120 pixel by 120 pixel phones. We actually had business solutions that were used for many, many years on those phones. In fact, there was one customer who said, when Android phones came in, they said, we told them, why don't you switch over? We thought we could sell him more software.
Right.
He said, I don't need to. I'm quite happy with this, and it's cheap. The phone is cheap, and it serves my purpose.
Yeah.
So we had those candy bar phones. They're called feature phones today. And we also delivered on Symbian and also on BlackBerry. Don't forget, BlackBerry was quite prominent in those days.
I remember it well. So then you saw this change into these mobile devices, right? And you started building applications, you said, for banks and for lending. When did you make the switch over into insurance?
Okay, in 2010 or thereabouts, I got a call from a company that was hosting solutions, back-end solutions for an insurance company.
Okay.
Okay, so they asked me, look, there's this insurance company, they want some software. Are you interested? So we said, sure, let's talk.
Right.
So they got me an audience with the chief executive of that company. And he told me that, look, I'm interested in a sales solution for giving to my sales agents. It was a life insurance company. Do you have one? So I had done a little bit of study of what sale of insurance involved. So I told him, yeah, sure, we have. So what we did was we went back and we tweaked our loan origination application. The sale process is pretty close to insurance selling. So we tweaked it, we changed it, modified it, and we put it on that 7-inch tablet. And 2 weeks later, just 2 weeks, it took us to tweak it. 2 weeks later, we went back to the CEO and he said, here's what you need. It had signature capture on the screen. It had location to track the seller. This gentleman was really keen on it. And, it was an instant decision. He said, okay, we're buying it.
Wow.
So that's how we got into insurance. And of course, we made that a much richer product.
And are you an engineer by training? Do you know what I mean? Are you a software developer by training, or what is your background?
When I studied engineering, I did engineering in IIT Kanpur.
Okay.
So
okay.
it's, well, a good experience. And in those days, the computers existed in a center. We had IBM 1620 and 370 and stuff like that, using punch cards. So I learned programming in that.
COBOL.
Medium. Yeah, punch cards.
So did I. Go ahead.
Well, that's my basic education. I got into software because I joined a company that was into manufacturing automobiles.
Okay.
In those days, again, there was no computer science. So they just sort of internally identified individuals and picked them up who would contribute to their computer systems. So I got into their, what was called the Management Services Division, MSD, and built software there. And then after 14 years, decided to get into having my own company and doing something new. So India's first computer-aided software engineering tool was built by me.
So what was that?
It was a tool which was used by software designers to design the system that they were wanting to create.
Unbelievable.
Today, believe it or not, there's so much of automation that those tools have become obsolete.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Oh, but you'd be surprised. I bet there are still people out there using them.
It was called a case tool.
Case tools. In 2010, how many people were in AccelTree?
Oh gosh, I don't know, about 25, 30.
And how about today?
Under 100.
I love
And
it.
we've always wished to keep it that way, because we felt that if we were small, we could be nimble, we could be innovative, we could actually create something exciting.
So I want to talk about this internal culture too. For a company that's been around for almost 20 years, to continue to be innovating, right? How do you create internally that culture of innovation where people aren't afraid to come and say, even to you, Vivek, I think that the development of this stuff is changing and I think we need to do this. Do you know what I mean? How do you maintain that culture? Because stuff is changing really fast. It's accelerating, right?
Yeah. Actually, I think I have tried to do it by leading the example. When AI came in, I told people, why don't you learn it? But the first thing I did was I took an online course
Myself, yeah.
in AI and ML. So people ask me, why are you doing that? I said, look, if I don't know how to use it, then there won't be any fun in getting it made.
Right.
So I actually did a certificate.
But also, how can you manage it if you don't know? Like, if there's a whole division of people working on artificial intelligence and machine learning, if you don't even know the basics of it, it's got to be impossible to manage it. This was always my feeling when I was at Goldman. Like, if I don't know how to do your job, how can I manage you through that job?
So I used to spend weekends studying. My wife said, look, what's wrong with me? I've gone back decades and I've become a student again. But it was fun.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's talk a little bit more about InsurTech. And when you think like at the core, from your point of view, and you've been at this for a while now, right? And you've seen a lot of changes. How would you characterize how digital insurers and InsurTechs are just changing the way insurance is getting done wholesale, yeah?
Well, there are two aspects to it. One is improving the distribution process, making it more transparent to the customer, and focusing on the customer. So I believe that till now we have done a lot of digitization. If I go to any insurance company and tell them, I want to give you a POS, they say, yeah, we've got it, we've had it for years.
Right.
Then I tell them, okay, I can give you a better POS. They say, don't need it. But what's interesting is all such systems are focused on the carrier,
Yeah,
on
this
improving
side.
the carrier's performance, improving the carrier's efficiency. Very few of them look at the customer. So I feel that very shortly, insurance solutions will offer customized products to each individual, something that will offer the best coverage at the lowest cost and continue to be transparent about it.
So when you look at customers, or when your firm looks at customers, right? Because I think you said this earlier. Go back to 2010, a lot of insurance companies were saying, we need to digitize this, we need to put this in digital form, we need to become more efficient. But a lot of it was looking internally, just as you just noted, right? And how do you then, there are two things here really. How do you look at the customer experience and try to figure out what's going to make that customer experience so good that it can be personalized? And then how do you convince the big insurance companies who will always do this? And I know this from my own experience, whether it's insurance companies or hamburger joints, they'll always say, oh, we do this internally, we can fix that ourselves. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. And that's the tough one. We start with talking only to mid-sized companies who are open to something new.
Yeah.
For example, in the US, we are bringing our innovations to a mid-sized brokerage, not the insurance company itself. Because the brokerage has producers who are actually talking to customers. Right. They are the ones facing the customer, not the insurance company. So we have introduced new solutions to such a brokerage.
And when you talk to those brokers, do they give you examples of how their customers want to interact with the software? I just got health insurance, and I sat with my agent and went through the process of using the digital tools to fill it out. And because I've always been involved, even as a trader sitting on a trading desk at Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, thinking, if the software was built in this way based on my workflow, I could fix it and make it better, right? So always really interested in user experience and that workflow. Do you sit with them when they're with their customers, or do they explain to you how that works so you can build better software for them?
Yeah, well, just remember, we have been in the insurance space now for 12 years.
Yep.
And we have been on the front end. We've not really looked at the back end processes. We have always been on the front end. We have been one step away from the end customer. We've really not talked to the end customer. We've been one step away. But let me give you an example.
Okay.
When you bought health insurance and you sat with that insurance seller and filled up the form along with that person, digitally. So there are many questions that are asked about your health. Now, if the seller is really wanting to push the sale, and you have some pre-existing condition, and you tell the seller, I've got this thing, I've got asthma, but he'll say, no, how much? Not much. So he'll say, skip it, forget it. Don't need to disclose it. It's mild.
Interesting.
Now that is bordering on mis-selling. Because if you have to go to hospital and you've got asthma,
yep,
the first thing they'll do is they're going to say, you didn't get this overnight. So you didn't disclose it properly. So what happened? There was a gap between the seller and you, or there was a communication which was not complete.
That's a good point.
So we want to bridge that gap using technology, using AI. We've thought of AI-bound transactional communication, like a virtual assistant which talks to you soon after you bought it and asks you, look, have you done this? Have you got any health problems? And did you disclose them? Remember, you will not get covered if you have not disclosed it. Something like that.
Yeah. And again, so the insurance that I bought, my agent was really awesome, but I dealt with a few agents before that, and they said similar things to me. Oh, just don't say it. And I thought to myself, but it's going to be pretty obvious when I go in for a checkup what I do and don't have, right?
Yeah, I looked up a lot of complaints online against health insurers, and I classified them, and one of the biggest one was about pre-existing conditions not having been covered.
Right.
Biggest.
Yeah. I want to talk about India specifically, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And I look at a lot of things in the context of GDP per capita, right? The big cities in India, Mumbai, take for example, the GDP per capita in Mumbai is about 7.5 times on average larger than it is in the country as a whole, right? Which must mean that outside the cities, tier 2, tier 3, and even the suburbs of those places just are a different place than the big cities in India. Can you talk a little bit about how those sectors are now sort of getting insured or getting related to these insurance businesses, particularly through technology?
Right. Firstly, there's something being done by the government for reaching out to rural India, but it's not adequate. It's rather slow. Whatever the reason, governmental processes take time. Today, about 8 to 9 million people only are insured under that scheme.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
That's not a lot. That's nothing. I mean, we've got...
Yeah, 1.3 billion people, 8 million people is just literally a drop in the bucket. Yeah.
Right. And more than 60% of them are in rural India.
Right.
In fact, that's our next, let's say, project, or it's not a project, it's my next wish, to be able to deliver insurance to common man in rural India at low cost. And the only way we can reduce the cost is to reduce the cost of distribution, because that's one of the highest costs. And the second is to educate that person, because that person does not understand the true benefit of insurance. What happens if he comes under a truck? Then who's going to look after his family? Those things don't occur to people.
Right.
There is a level of insurance in rural India for crop insurance.
Right.
It's there. But then the poor person who's taken insurance doesn't know how to claim it. It's a matter of education. So just recently I was discussing with my colleagues, and we said, we've got to first educate them. Give them an app by which we can push them information about how they can get benefits through insurance and make it exciting. So you'll probably see that coming out soon.
How do you do that? So again, just a few examples. This idea of financial literacy, financial inclusion, I like to now start calling it insurance literacy, but at a higher level, right? It's just like, how does finance work and why does it matter to me? And I also think that people have what I call like the fallacy of right now. Right now I'm healthy. Right now I'm not getting hit by a truck. Right now my crops are fine. So why do I need this insurance thing? But once you become financially literate, you understand the benefit of $1 today is worth more than $1 in 5 years and all this other kind of stuff, right? Discounted cash flows and all these other things that are important. But how do you create engagement that is also educational, right? I look at a company like LifePal in Indonesia. They literally have 500,000 followers on Instagram and 4 million people read their blog every month. They're trying to educate people about insurance in a way that's both informative and fun. How do you attack that?
Well, it's a little different out here because blogs are not really looked at or read in rural India.
Yep, I understand.
A phone is used for communication. Most people in rural India, even today, use those feature phones, those candy bar phones, because they just want to talk to their loved ones. That's it, or for business purposes. So the only answer is talk to them.
Really? But you said you were building an app, right? So what does that app do?
So that's where, AI comes in. We're talking about AI-based transactional virtual assistant, which is like a chatbot, but talking chatbot, okay? And we believe we can deliver content to them and make it exciting, make it fun. And this is all on the phone, not on a computer, not on a tablet, not even on an Android phone, because not that many people have Android phones.
Go ahead.
And even if they do, it's the younger generation.
Right.
And once they get them, they sort of move to the younger generation tends to switch to urban jobs.
Yeah, they move.
Yeah, so not 60% is still back there, but it's going to change. And the only way to make it change is to give them literacy, give them information, and make it fun.
So do you build your own conversational AI, or do you partner with companies like Unifor that have been doing this for a while?
We partner with a company in which there's a cross-holding. That means the promoter of that company is an investor in us, is an early investor in us. This is a company founded in the US, in California, called Preexisting.
Okay.
They think like we do. We also create our own technology engines. So they created this AI engine from ground up. They didn't take what was readily available out there. So they have a multi-agent engine, something that can take a very complex question asked, split it up into multiple questions, and answer them in sequence or together. It's a very interesting company, and we have been working with them for the last 4 years.
I'd love to be able to talk to them too and learn more about how that works.
I can introduce you to them.
Yeah.
The person was my was 1 year away from me in college in IIT Kanpur. So he did a PhD in today what we call AI, but back in 1987 it was it was not called AI.
I'm sure.
I don't even know what it was called.
Oh, sure. You talked before about distribution, and how do you think the entry of companies like PhonePe, right, that have 500 or 400 million people on their platform, using the payment rails in India to connect to people and then distributing insurance to them, how does that change the tenor from your perspective for this distribution that is really important to you?
As I had mentioned earlier in this conversation, selling insurance is still something that is done face to face. PhonePe is attempting to use a mass consumer base to not sell them insurance, but to offer them an ability to purchase insurance. That's so difficult. I mean, I'll buy it only if I need it, and I don't need it, so I don't buy it. And when I need it, it's too late.
Do you want to talk to me about some of the new things that are coming from AccelTree? Like, we already talked a little bit about this idea of moving into some of the rural places and some of the technology that you're building there. What's the next big idea coming?
Then I thought this was the next big idea. Talking to the customer, using AI to actually focus only on the customer. We call it care of one digital strategy, and that's our approach. We are not pushing conventional digital tools, but pushing solutions which will sit on these tools. Interestingly, we also introduced during COVID, actually it was introduced before COVID, a tool by which a seller could talk to the customer and share the screen. And it's not sharing of screen. I actually do not do it through a server. I allow you, the customer, to get on your device and see and get a form which is exactly the same as what is on my screen. It's like a peer-to-peer information sharing. And all the logic sits on my tablet. So you can use your phone, you can use anything you want, and no data is lost. We got a patent pending for this. And we believe that this is going to be somewhere in between face-to-face selling and remote selling.
So what you're saying is, again, let's go back to my health insurance purchase experience. I sat with my agent in front of her tablet, messed around with my finger on the tablet, right? Did all that stuff, signed my name. But what you're saying is, because of COVID, maybe because of COVID, but even without it, right? If I'm in a major city, but I have a client in a small town, I can then show them my screen. We can work on it together, almost like a Google Sheet kind of thing.
It's almost like that with a difference. All the logic is sitting only on my tablet, and what you get is only the user interface to my tablet. So actually you are putting it into my tablet without realizing it. And and all the validation, all the underwriting, everything is done on my tablet. And interestingly, there are two aspects to this. One is voice is available on the same app. So I'm talking to you. And if you wish, you can enable video call also within the app. We found that using small phones, a video call is really pointless because it becomes like a 1 centimeter square on the screen, which is absurd. Yeah, but it's actually duplicating 100%, duplicating your experience with your health insurance seller, except that now he's sitting at a different location. Everything continues exactly the same. You fill up the form, you sign. In addition to signing, you can upload documents. When you upload those documents, they don't go into a server, they come to me. They come on my tablet. So privacy is maintained.
Which is really important. So
right.
The last topic I want to cover you is this idea of transition, right? So you started AccelTree 20 years ago. You weren't originally in the insurance business. It sounds almost like you were building software in banking, now in insurance. But now it just seems like you can build anything. Is there a move into just being kind of like an idea firm as opposed to a specific type of technology firm? Does that make sense?
Actually, we have always been an idea firm only. We produced a first transactional loan origination system on the internet, and I demonstrated it, believe it or not, in 1998 in a symposium, in a Gartner symposium in Orlando. And we had this booth over there, and we were showing people this, and everyone came to me and said, you cannot do this on the internet. I mean, it's not possible. Nobody's going to use it.
Why though? Because it wasn't secure? Because they didn't trust it? Why?
They did not, because it was not adequately secure, because in those days, only content was displayed on the internet, websites, stuff like that. So they could not believe that you could have transactions of this nature, a workflow-based solution
Fair enough.
on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, back then it was just like reading the New York Times or Time magazine.
Exactly. So we have been innovating and trying to be innovating all along. In fact, my colleague called it idea tech. So instead of saying InsurTech, because we've been producing new things in the space of technology over the years, and that's what makes it fun. You won't believe the number of products that we've thrown away.
Tell me.
And shared. Oh yeah, we have shared products. We've done some exciting things and just didn't find buyers because whatever. It was most often it was because it was too early.
Yeah. It's really interesting how timing matters on some of these things. I mean, this transactional engine that you built in 1998 was early. It really was. Because people looked at it and it was almost like magic. Like, you can't do this. The only thing you can do here is display things, which wasn't actually true, right?
They actually said it's impossible. I mean, forget it. And today, I'd like to meet the same people.
Oh my God. Okay. That sounds, unless there's anything else you want to cover, that is a great way to end. Is that cool?
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. Let me just thank you. I'd like to thank Vivek Mannige, the founder and CEO of AccelTree's software. That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. This was an excellent experience. I enjoyed it. Thank you.